This video will provide a systematic overview of how to efficiently and compliantly introduce medical devices into the Macau market. Here is the content that we are covered today. Medical devices are classified as Class 1, Class 2A, Class 2B, and Class 3. There are two main regulatory pathways. For Class 2B and Class 3 devices, the pathway is device registration. Applicants must hold the relevant operating license, drug license, or Chinese medicine license. Approval is based on a reference market approval approach, and the deadline is the 30th of June, 2028. For Class 1 and Class 2A devices, the pathway is listing. This is similar to EU self-declaration, with a deadline of the 30th of June, 2029. In Macau medical device regulation, a medical device is defined to include instruments, equipment, in vitro diagnostic reagents, calibrators, materials, related articles, and the necessary software. Its main effect is achieved primarily by physical means, not by pharmacological, immunological, or metabolic means, although those may have a supporting role. These devices may be used for diagnosis, prevention, monitoring, treatment, or relief of disease or injury, as well as life support, physiological support, conception control, and diagnostic testing of human samples. In Macau, medical devices are classified into four classes, with higher classes corresponding to higher risk levels. The classification of medical devices depends on a variety of factors, including intended purpose, structural characteristics, and mode of use. For Class 2B and Class 3 devices, the registration application deadline is the 30th of June, 2028, and the transition period ends with inclusion into the import license system on the 30th of June, 2029. For Class 2A devices, the listing application deadline is the 30th of June, 2029, and the transition period ends with inclusion into the import license system on the 30th of June, 2030. For Class 1 devices, the listing application deadline is the 30th of June, 2031, and the transition period ends with inclusion into the import license system on the 30th of June, 2032. Medical device registration applies to Class 2B and Class 3 devices. Registration in Macau follows a reference market approval approach, such as EU MDR or US 510K. The authority reviews the application, assesses safety, effectiveness, and quality control. Once the registration is approved, the Pharmaceutical Administration Bureau, ISAF, issues a registration certificate to applicant. And each registration certificate is valid for 5 years and may be renewed when it expires. Custom-made medical devices do not require listing or registration. Here is the medical device registration process in Macau. Step 1 is an optional pre-procedure consultation, where ISAF provides information on requirements, documents, process, fees, and may advise on innovative clinical plans. Step 2 is submission of the application. Step 3 is a formal review, typically completed within 20 working days. Step 4 is the substantive review. Step 5 is inspection. Step 6 is the decision by the ISAF director, who grants or refuses registration. From substantive review to decision, the timeline is 70 working days for Class 2B devices and 100 working days for Class 3 devices, with a possible extension of up to 4 to 5 working days for high-complexity cases. Here are the government registration fees. Please note that these amounts are exclusive of the 10% stamp duty that applied at the time. Here are the documents required for device registration. Clinical evaluation is usually required to demonstrate safety and effectiveness, but it may be waived when the device's mechanism, design, intended use, and clinical history are already well established. Clinical evaluation is mainly based on reviewing existing clinical documentation and data from similar devices, while a clinical investigation is needed if the available evidence is not sufficient. In addition, any clinical investigation in Macau requires prior authorization from ISAF, which will also issue more detailed technical instructions and exemption criteria. Here is the required information on medical device labels. Please note that items 5 to 13 must be provided in the instructions for use if they are not included in the label. This is the template sample of the registration certificate. If the registration certificate is lost or damaged, an application for reissuance may be submitted. The reissued certificate will be marked as reissued. If the original certificate is damaged, the holder must return it to ISAF on the date the reissued certificate is obtained. Registration may be suspended when the registration certificate holder fails to comply with ISAF requirements, when safety or quality concerns are identified, when registered information is changed without following legal procedures, or when conditions for conditional approval are not met. Registration may be cancelled at the holder's request, after failure to reinstate a suspended registration, after failure to apply for required changes, by court decision, through false statements or unlawful means, or when quality issues may endanger public health. Registration also lapses if renewal is not requested or approved before its validity ends. When a registration is suspended, cancelled, or has lapsed, the affected devices must be withdrawn and may no longer circulate in Macau. For registration changes, the holder must submit the required information to ISAF in advance, and changes to the device name require a new registration application. The holder must apply for renewal between 90 and 180 days before the registration expires. The renewal application must be submitted using the ISAF form and include a declaration confirming that the holder still meets the legal requirements, the device remains compliant with Law No. 12/2025, and the device label and instructions for use must match with the versions approved by the ISAF. The application must also include adverse event report and evidence of market approval for foreign manufactured devices, except for any regions that may later be exempted. For Class 1 and 2 a medical device, listing involves submitting information about the medical device to the authority in accordance with legal procedures and requirements, so the device can be recorded for listing and future reference. No certificate is issued under this process. Once ISAF confirms that all submitted documents are complete, it notifies the applicant that the listing process has been completed. Here is the listing process in Macau. First, an optional pre-procedure consultation allows interested parties to obtain information from ISAF on listing requirements, documents, and procedures. Second, ISAF conducts a formal review within 5 working days to verify document completeness and applicant legitimacy. If the application is incomplete or not legitimate, it will not be accepted. Third, on the next working day after the formal review is completed, ISAF notifies the applicant of the listing review result. For changes to listed information, the applicant must submit the ISAF form with the filer's name, listing number, and reasons for the proposed changes. Changes to the device name or structural features are not allowed and require a new device listing. Here is the required documents for Macau medical device listing. Once the submitted information is confirmed as complete, ISAF notifies the applicant and archives the file for possible verification. If a listing is cancelled, the devices must be withdrawn from the market from the date of ISAF's notification and may no longer circulate in Macau. Any listing changes must be notified to ISAF in writing at least 5 working days in advance. Changes to the product name or structural characteristics are not allowed, except through a new listing. An operating license is required to import and wholesale Class 2B and Class 3 medical devices, and also for retail of Class 2B devices. Retail of Class 3 devices is prohibited, except for supply to medical institutions and research units. By contrast, import, wholesale, and retail of Class 1 and Class 2A devices do not require an operating license. Retail premises for Class 2B devices must appoint a technical supervisor who must meet integrity and qualification or experience requirements. The operating license is valid from the date of issue until the 31st of December of the following year and may then be renewed annually. Here is the operating license fee. Please note that these amounts are exclusive of the 10% stamp duty that applied at the time. Holders of a drug license under Decree Law No. 5890M or a Chinese medicine license under Law No. 11/2021 are exempt from obtaining a separate operating license for the import, export, and wholesale of Class IIB and Class III medical devices. However, exempted operators must still comply with Law No. 12/2025 on medical device regulation, as well as the related operational requirements for premises. Some license changes require approval, including changes to name or address, layout or equipment, approved devices, license holder information for legal entities, and new managers or key officers. Suspension may occur for specified reasons and duration, with corrective actions required before it can be lifted. Cancellation may occur at the holder's request, after non-compliance, non-renewal, failure to start business within 1 year, or loss of the industrial license or holder's death. If a license is suspended or cancelled, activities must stop immediately, stock must be handled or transferred properly, evidence of transfer must be provided, and storage must be maintained appropriately. The holder must ensure the medical device meets all specifications and quality requirements, establish and maintain an effective quality management system, and define a post-market investigation and risk control plan. The holder must also maintain traceability, implement product recall procedures, promptly notify ISAF of recalls, and ensure sufficient resources are in place to meet these obligations. There are some post-market vigilance obligations for device registration or listing holder. ISAF must be notified within 24 hours after serious adverse events are identified. A detailed report must then be submitted within the timeframe requested by ISAF. Post-market evaluations should also be conducted when scientific research changes the understanding of safety or efficacy, or when monitoring suggests potential issues with a medical device. VCare has extensive experience in regulatory submissions and, over the years, we've built a deep understanding of local regulatory requirements, which enables us to design efficient and compliant registration pathways. In addition, we act as a leading local license holder and authorized representative in both Taiwan and Hong Kong, managing over 100 licenses in each market for major international clients, including Huawei, Apple, Penumbra, IBA, and Massimo. Building on this foundation, we provide end-to-end services across the product lifecycle, offering our clients a comprehensive regulatory solution. If you have any further question, please contact us by the information showed on the screen. Thank you.